there, new friends. This is Ellen Weatherford. Do you like animals? Do you enjoy arbitrarily rating things out of 10? Can you tolerate puns? If so, join me and my husband Christian over at Just the Zoo of Us for a weekly review of your favorite animal species. Just the Zoo of Us is available on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast apps. You can find us at anchor.fm/justthezooofus. See you soon.
The folklore in Kid Cryptid wouldn't exist if it weren't for the rich history and vibrant cultures these stories come from. While we do our best to provide accurate information, we recognize that we are, at best, amateurs here. This podcast is best considered for entertainment purposes only, and it comes from a place of love and respect for the peoples behind the lore. Now, on with the show.
I'm Shawn.
I'm Elias.
And you are listening to Kid Cryptid, the podcast where we talk about creatures from our wildest imaginations that may or may not be real, known as cryptids. How's it going, Elias?
Good.
So this week's cryptid comes to us via request. Heads up, Armando, this one's for you. Elias, heads up too, because here comes some hints. It's big, it's mean, and it lives deep in the sea. What do you think is coming?
The Kraken.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about the Kraken. And before we go farther, I know some people say Kraken, but I grew up with the Kraken pronunciation, so that's what I'm going to stick with. Tomato, tomato. Also, our friends at Just the Zoo of Us podcast will have a nicely timed Kraken-adjacent episode about the vampire squid. Ooh. So if you find this creature interesting, definitely go check them out. Now, I think you might know a couple things about this creature since you just watched an episode of Beast Legends involving it. Why don't you go ahead and kick things off here?
So, what I know about this is it's a sea monster, and it is very big. It has long tentacles, looks like a squid plus octopus, and it has and I'm pretty sure in Beastmasters, they make these tentacles come out from its body in this animation, and it looks like, you know how the giant squid has those tentacles with those sharp pointy things on?
Yeah.
So it has that to grab onto its prey, and I'm pretty sure it eats whales, destroys ships, drowns people, and I'm pretty sure that's all I know about it.
All right, you gave a pretty solid description there, but there are a couple of variations. As I looked into it, I found a couple things about some that looked much more crab-like, or that they had horns instead of tentacles. Like originally, the Kraken was much more described as being like a giant crab kind of creature.
A little like that, but it's like a crab plus octopus plus squid equals Kraken, or Kraken.
We're going to fight over this pronunciation, I see.
I'm not fighting over it. I like saying Kraken, not Kraken.
You can say what you want, but I know what I'm sticking with.
I'm sticking with Kraken, too.
Now, did you know that the Kraken actually comes to us from Scandinavian mythology?
Scandalo?
So Scandinavian, so stuff like Norway and Sweden and the Netherlands, up in that area. So Vikings.
Ooh, I love Vikings. They're so cool.
So I didn't know this until researching. Sadly, I thought that it was tied to Greek mythology thanks to the movie Clash of the Titans. I should have known better, though, because the Kraken in that looks nothing at all like any of the other descriptions. So now you said it looks like a giant squid, and you're right on there.
Yeah.
But do you have any idea how giant?
I'm thinking it's about almost as tall as a skyscraper. It's bigger than those long ships from the olden days. And it looks like an island, so I'm pretty sure it's humongous.
Oh, that was a good catch. So you're a little off on how big, but you did get some good details, because in some versions it was described as large enough to be mistaken for an island. But also in those versions, it said that the tentacles were about a mile long.
A mile? You mean 1,000 feet?
That's bigger than that. You're thinking kilometers, which would make much more sense, but that's an argument for another day.
Seriously.
Now, the sight of a kraken emerging from the sea was quite a sight to behold as well. In 1781, Swedish author Jacob Wallenberg wrote, "Gradually, kraken ascends to the surface, and when he is at 10 to 12 fathoms, the boat had better move out of its vicinity, or he will shortly thereafter burst up, like a floating island, spurting water from his dreadful nostrils, and making ring waves about him which can reach many miles."
I mean, I can see why it looks like a humongous island, because, I mean, you know how squids have those big things over their heads?
Those are their heads.
Wait, you mean their brain is in that?
Well,
I mean, the brains are...
You know what? How about we'll leave that to our friends over at Just the Zoo of Us, because I don't know squid biology well enough for that.
Actually, I remember something because it's on their tentacles. But, so, I'm thinking you can mistake it because its head and the big jiggly part of the head, like big squid thingy head thing, can be mistaken by it because it's very bumpy and it's very dark brownish, and if you're in fog at night, it might be a little hard to tell if it's island or the kraken.
Well, it's not a very good mistake to make. Now, if the sight of the kraken coming up wasn't enough, it would also create a whirlpool that could suck ships and sailors down to the bottom of the sea when it dove back under the water.
Oh, so what I'm thinking was what happens for the whirlpool is it just keeps on sucking, like, you know how a bird eats worms and we slurp up needles?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's slurping up the ships.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I did say that it sucks it down, so if that's what helps paint an image in your mind, we'll just run with it.
I mean, it does have those big chompers, and probably inside is like this big hole of air for them to, like, breathe and suck in water and stuff like that. But whirlpools usually have openings. So I'm wondering, how could it make a whirlpool with its mouth if they're underwater? 'Cause, like...
No, it's not making it with its mouth. When it dives back down, so you know how, like, when in water you move and it creates waves? Well, if it's shooting downward, that wave is going down. So that wave is pulling everything down with it.
Oh, so that's what you mean.
So that's how it's creating the whirlpool.
Oh, I was thinking that was just sucking everything down. I mean, it might get mistaken by ships, because you know how I mentioned it likes eating whales?
Yes.
They're all the way down there, and if they see this object that looks as big as a whale, they might mistaking it, and they might think it's a whale, and it's actually a boat.
Yeah, so it doesn't leave a whole lot of good options, does it? Like, you either get thrown off of the ships when the thing comes up out of the water, or you get sucked into a whirlpool, or you get grabbed by a tentacle.
Or you just go the normal way with the ship, drowned.
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of good options if you're at sea when the Kraken comes about, huh?
Yeah, or you could just turn, and if you see it in its eyes opened up, better turn around and run away. If you have a fast boat.
So first mentioned in the 13th century, it was believed that only 2 krakens could exist because they require so much food that more than 2 could not survive at any one time. And when they weren't attacking ships and eating sailors, they were hunting fish. They would do this by vomiting or otherwise excreting a substance that the fish would mistake for food. And by excreting, I meant that the krakens would poop. And
didn't want to hear that.
Yeah, but apparently it was really good fish bait because the fish would swarm it. And as they did so, the Kraken would envelop them in its tentacles and devour them by the hundreds.
I thought that they would only eat whales, not fish. I mean, they're bigger than a fish.
Yeah, but when you're catching fish by the hundreds, it kind of makes up for it.
It kind of makes like a school of fish that can protect itself.
Actually, most sources seem to believe that fish were always the real target, and that ships, for example, were just collateral damage. So they were chasing fish, and the ships just happened to be in the area and got destroyed.
I mean, if it looked like a bunch of fish, then probably.
And I'm also not suggesting that you start using poop for fish bait.
I'm not either.
You're not a Kraken, so leave it alone.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not vomiting.
Yeah, don't vomit either.
No, I wish I couldn't hear about vomit, but it didn't poop.
Although, I know, like, when they said that the Kraken would excrete something, that to me sounds a whole lot like a giant squid inking. Like, you know how when squid get scared?
Yeah, like they make, and like there's prey behind them, they just squirt out this ink so that way they can run away fast.
Yeah, so they use that more as a defense mechanism rather than something to hunt with.
I mean, it's kind of like a smoke bomb, so that way
A little bit.
nobody can see you, and then you just sneak up. And when it clears, you just sneak up on them.
So speaking of sounding like a squid, the Kraken is actually kind of an example of a cryptid that has been proven to exist.
What?
Well, sort of. You see, today it's believed that sailors were actually seeing giant and or colossal squid.
I mean, that is possible, but colossal squid only go down in the deep ends, because...
Well, but they come up at some point or they find dead ones.
But, I mean, they do have those big eyes, and how could it see with those big eyes if it's in light? I mean, those big eyes usually help it for darkness.
Okay. You're speaking a lot of really good biology stuff there.
I learned it from Octonauts.
Now, both of these creatures are quite large, though not nearly as big as the reported size of a Kraken. Still, we know that they do tangle with sperm whales based on scars found on whale bodies, and from large squid beaks found inside the stomachs of dead whales.
I mean, they do eat squid, so of course there's going to be squid beaks in them.
But I mean, they found some really big ones in there.
It might have ate a giant squid or a colossal squid.
Now, so that sailors would see such a creature and perceive it as some kind of monster is totally understandable. I mean, this was during a time where sea travel was still filled with plenty of danger. Like, a voyage was not guaranteed to be survivable.
I mean, sharks could attack your ship.
Okay, the boats were bigger than that. So, seeing a gigantic squid would probably add some extra anxiety to a trip that was already kind of scary.
But I know that the colossal squid is bigger than the gigantic squid.
It is, but it's also even rarer.
I mean, yeah, but it's also a different shape.
And even today, we know less about our oceans and what lives in the depths than we do about space and other planets.
That's actually true, because on Brainchild, they told me that nobody has actually explored a bunch of the depths of the ocean than outer space.
You were name dropping all sorts of stuff today.
I'm trying to be a scientist when I grow up.
I'm just saying, none of them sponsor us, so, I mean, giving them all that advertising doesn't seem fair.
It seems a little fair, so that way they can just get more, like, watches.
It's very nice of you.
I love Brainchild.
Now, as for the reports of bubbles and strong currents and stuff that would kind of happen when they said a Kraken was supposed to be coming up.
Yeah.
Or even like the appearance of like a new island.
I mean, that is fair, but...
No, so when people were describing like a Kraken coming up, how like they would see new land or they would see bubbles.
Yeah, I mean like that.
Well, so those are all signs of an underwater volcano.
I mean, that is possible, because...
Well, and because Iceland and all of those other kind of Scandinavian countries.
Yeah.
They're surrounded, and like that surrounding area is pretty volcanic. So it would make sense that there would be volcanoes happening underwater that would be active and otherwise creating things that would look like a kraken coming up.
I mean, some volcanoes actually come up by water to actually become a volcano and make an island.
No, that's totally how it happens. So that's kind of part of where they think the other kraken stories were coming from.
If you saw a little circle at the top, because it's not like it's a mountain that's closing in. It's like it goes up and there's a little hole in the head of the of the volcano.
All right, well, I got a question for you. Do you think Nessie and the Kraken are friends?
No.
Why not?
Well, first of all, they probably don't know each other because, first of all, Nessie lives somewhere else than the Kraken. And also, the Kraken would have a great chance of getting Nessie and thinking it was a whale.
So you're suggesting that the Kraken would eat Nessie?
I mean, it is littler. I mean, Nessie is littler than the Kraken.
Okay, so interesting. I had not expected things to go there. I did not think that you would call Nessie Kraken bait, but okay.
I don't call Nessie Kraken bait.
You just did. You just said Nessie would be
I'm
eaten.
just saying to warn her.
Okay, so you're saying that going near the Kraken is not a good idea for the Loch Ness Monster.
I love Nessie. I would never call her Kraken bait. I'm just giving her a warning of if she goes near it, you better watch out.
Okay, then. That seems fair.
Because I don't want to make Nessie Kraken bait, because remember how in the Loch Ness Monster episode where you said we're learning what Nessie is?
Yeah, and it sounds like Nessie might be a giant eel.
Yeah, but...
That sounds like Kraken bait.
Seriously. It sounds like a giant worm is what it sounds like. But I'm just trying to make sure that she stays alive so that way we can know what she is.
Okay, fair enough. And I think that might just wrap us up today. You got anything else, Elias?
Not really. I'm just going to say that if you go near that ocean where you said it was near, then you better watch out for islands that look like they're new. And if they do look like they're new, you better start heading different directions.
All right, so watch out for new islands in Scandinavia.
Yeah, but if there's like this thing at the top that has only a little circular around there, I would recommend not going around there because it might be a volcano. And if you want to go up to the top and see the magma, you might accidentally fall in.
All right, then. On that note, I'm Shawn.
I'm Elias.
Until next time.